Hey guys, Editing Sam here. I just want to jump in before this video even really gets a chance to get started to give you guys some trigger warnings, because when I filmed this, I totally meant to do that and didn't. So this right here is your trigger warning. This book, and therefore this review, does have some explicit mention of rape, sexual assault, sexual violence, that sort of thing. And also just general sexism. So just keep that in mind before you get further into this like mammoth of a video. Maybe don't watch if that stuff could be upsetting to you. For the most part, this is a pretty lighthearted review, but I just thought I should mention that. Okay, back to your regularly scheduled programming. Okay. Hey everybody, my name is Sam. Welcome back to my channel. We're in for a rough one today, guys. So, a couple of videos ago, I posted a recent reads, and in that video, I mentioned that I had read the worst thing that I had ever read. And I asked if you guys wanted to see a review of that book, and a bunch of you said yes. You guys asked for this, so keep that in mind. Today I am going to be doing a review of Sunstop8 by Lou Fisher, which is a literary fucking masterpiece. Oh boy. And for a book with this much class, I have to be drinking the classiest of beverages, which is Miller High Life, aka the champagne of beers. So, this book is a sci-fi, I guess. And this is easily the worst thing that has ever been written. So I guess what I'm going to do first is go through a synopsis, which I took the time to write up for you guys earlier. I'm going to warn you now, this review will have spoilers. However, I think I've only ever seen this book once, and that was the time I bought it. So odds that you're going to encounter this in your day-to-day life are pretty low. Also, if you do, run so far in the other direction that you have no danger of even accidentally touching it. Like, don't read this book. Oh, by the way, if I'm looking off screen, my laptop is over there and it's got notes and stuff on it. So keep that in mind. Okay. Our story follows Chet McCoy, who is a human bookie who's just like booping around the galaxy on a ship that is aptly named Ruffian because, you know, he's a ruffian, and he's just running his bookie business. And he has this like muscly, rocks for brains sidekick who is named Rocky because who needs subtlety? Am I right, ladies? Anyway, so Chet leaves Rocky on Ruffian on their ship and lets him hold down the fort, as it were. And he goes off to the Sunstop system because he needs a break from his hard playing bookie lifestyle. So he is on Sunstop 6 because that's apparently like a hot vacation spot. He meets a girl named Avon. She wants nothing to do with him. She doesn't want to talk to him at all. She just happens to be in the same place at the same time, and she also happens to work at the hotel he's staying in. Later that day, he gets kidnapped by some government agents from Sunstop8, which most people apparently avoid because it's been in like this civil war for some unspecified length of time. There's like a rebellious group that's uprising that wants to overthrow the government. And it turns out that Paul Gluttender, who is the shrivelly and essentially useless current ruler of Sunstop8, decided that he needed Chet specifically to come to Sunstop8 and use his unparalleled and widely renowned bookieing skills to run a lottery to improve citizen morale so that they might not try to overthrow the government anymore. And if he doesn't agree to do it, then old Pocky is gonna imprison him and potentially execute him. That threat gets thrown around. I'm not sure how legit it is. And the charges are going to be that he illegally traveled there without proper paperwork because the agents conveniently did not grab his passport or the equivalent thereof when they kidnapped him. And then for extra insurance, while they were kidnapping him, they also kidnapped the girl Avon, and now they're threatening to imprison her as well because they think that he's in love with her and that he'll do whatever they need him to do to keep her safe. And apparently they're kind of right, because he does agree to do it more for her sake than his. But things aren't going to be that simple for our hero. He can't just go there, run the lottery, live his life, be on his merry way. No. Because the rebel group that's trying to overthrow good old Pocky, they don't want the lottery to happen because apparently it will be super effective and it will prevent them from having their violent uprising. So they don't want him to do the lottery. So they threaten our buddy Chet and tell him that he has to find a way to sabotage the lottery from within, or they're going to kill him and also Avon, who again he spoke to for 5 minutes because apparently she almost escaped from the jail, but then the rebellious group kidnapped her and now she's in their possession. Are we following? Me neither. Anyway, while all this is going on, back at the Ruffian, which is Chet's ship, if you've forgotten, I wouldn't blame you. There's a lot going on. Rocky, our pal Rocky, is busy having so much aggressive sex with his lady friend Brana, who is referred to as the Blonde for a good portion of that chapter, that she has momentarily forgotten how to say anything other than "I'm sore all over," which you would think it'd be a good indicator that it'd be time to leave her alone, get some sleep. But no, Rocky just keeps pestering her "Lady, let's have sex." And she's just "Leave me alone, I'm sore, dude." And he's "Let's have sex." And sometime during all of this, some upstanding gentleman from Sunstop8 shows up because Chet never paid for his hotel tab and they want their money. That's when they figure out that Chet is in trouble and he's missing and nobody knows where he is. And then Rocky sets off to find him with very little information available. Really, we don't see any of Rocky's journey after he finds out Chet's not there until they meet up later. So Rocky finds out, he's I have to go save him, and then he takes off, and then we're back with Chet. And so while all that's going on, Chet is barely managing to stall the lottery, and eventually he actually has to start it because his original plan was to stall, and that way he wouldn't have to run it and he wouldn't have to sabotage it if it just never started. That was his plan. But if somebody brought you to a planet to run a lottery and you didn't start doing it, they'd probably get frustrated, which is exactly what happens. And so eventually he has to start running it, and then he comes up with all of these crazy brilliant ideas that no one's ever thought of before, and he's doing a really good job, and it starts to look like the lottery is going to be successful, and that makes the rebels very upset. Fortunately for our boy Chet, one of the rebel leaders is a double agent herself. She is Pocky old boy's younger and much more attractive wife, but she has also taken a liking to our brawny hero. So she decides she's going to help him because she loves his dick and they've been getting it on in secret this whole time that he's been on the planet. Unfortunately, before they can actually enact any real plan to get out of there, Pocky, my boy's robot pal, who has a name that's just a series of numbers. It's 6307154 or something 830754. He catches Chet, our hero, and Jewel, who is the double agent lady, catches them in a very compromising position. They just kind of rip him apart and then store him in the bathroom and hope for the best. It's really weird. And once they handle that bit of dirty business, they move on to the really risky stuff, which is stealing all of the money that's meant to be the prize for the lottery and then making an escape to the rebel camp where apparently help will be waiting. Although, did nobody think that they were also threatening to kill Chet just as dead as the government was? Because I wouldn't have maybe like blindly trusted that plan. Anyway, they almost get caught when they're trying to escape with the money. And then there's another really crazy action sequence where eventually they run into Rocky because Rocky found them. And then they jump aboard Rocky's stolen shuttle and head off to the enemy camp. And then they walk right into a fucking trap. It like looks like Jewel, the wife person, double agent lady. It looks like she was trying to set it up. She wasn't, but we don't know that yet. So they, the other rebels, separated her from Chet and Rocky, and they led Chet and Rocky into this weird cavern room where it turns out they have Avon, remember her, handcuffed to a pillar, and then they can't rescue her because then they get handcuffed to the pillar also. So now there's just hostages abound, and it's a big ol' mess. And then, for some reason, the guard decides to leave the three prisoners alone. So during this time that they're alone, we find out that all the time that Avon's been here, because this has been over the course of like a few months, I think, she has been repeatedly raped by this creepy guard dude. And then that makes Chet really angry. So then he has this brilliant escape idea where he and Avon are going to pretend that they're having sex right when the guard is coming in for his next apparently regularly scheduled sexual assault, because then the guard will be blinded by jealousy, lose all self-control, and get physically close enough for them to overpower him, and then they can like stab him and steal his keys and escape. That's their plan. And it sort of works, but then when they do kill him, he lands, like the body lands too far away for them to reach his keys, so they're stuck, and there's just a dead body, and now Chet and Avon are also naked, because why not? And then Chet, like I said, he thinks his other lady friend betrayed him, but she's actually the one that comes to their rescue, and she gets them, like, unlocked or whatever, and then she immediately gets killed. Like, her head just gets chopped right off, because that makes it much easier than going forward for Chet to decide which love interest to pursue. So then we have one big final action sequence, which ends with Chet and company setting off some explosives that they conveniently forgot that they had until right at this moment, and then they make their big escape and go back to Sunstop8, which is where this whole thing started, where then Chet, because he's technically still running the lottery, just declares Rocky's lottery ticket that he bought when he got to the planet, just declares that the winner, because that's how lotteries work. Apparently, you just pick who wins. And then they keep the money, and then he and Avon get drunk and hump off into the sunset together. And that's the end. That's the whole thing. That's the whole story. I will say, for the first like 2/3 of this book, it was so bad that it was entertaining. I was laughing a lot. The writing was really over the top, and some of the choices that the author made were just like so outlandish that I could interpret it as a joke if I wanted to. Also, there were a couple of other things that I genuinely enjoyed, such as the illustrations, because there's illustrations at the beginning of the chapters, and they're the shit. And also a new phrase that I am going to be adopting into my everyday lexicon, and that is Johnny Pumpkin. The context of that is, those guys didn't care if I was Chet McCoy or Johnny Pumpkin. They only cared about what I was supposed to do, and they wanted me out of the way, dead or alive. But now let's get into the issues I had, which are many. So first I'll go with the most obvious thing, which is, what the fuck is this plot? The fate of an entire planet's government rests in the hands of a very specific bookie from Earth who didn't even have any real understanding or awareness of the political conflict that's been going on before they kidnapped him and then literally forced him to be there. There's a lot of things to unpack there, but like, I don't understand how a lottery, like literally just buy tickets, win money, normal ass lottery, could make or break a whole ass uprising on a planet. I feel like if people are upset enough with the government that they want to overthrow it, a little morale boost in the form of a lottery, which you still have to pay for tickets for, is probably too little, too late for the government to do at that point. But maybe that's just me. And I can maybe see why like a clueless government official might think something like that would make all the difference, because like governments historically aren't known for taking these matters, like using the most practical approach for these things. But like, what really frosts my cookies about the whole situation is that the rebels also seem to think that this is going to make or break their rebellion. And they probably weren't that viable of a threat to the government to begin with if this one man's ability to run a lottery is going to crush your entire political movement. And again, I stress that it apparently needed to be this specific bookie, to the point that they like followed him and found him on a different planet and brought him there, despite the fact that he even mentions in the story, like, you could get anybody to do this. No, it had to be this fucking guy. So it's like a weird chosen one bookie trope. I don't really know. It's shenanigans. It's so dumb. In addition to the plot, the characters are flat. There's not even enough to say about them to like get into that, but just know most of them are pretty interchangeable. And in addition to that, the writing is just straight up bad. It's so bad. Like, the dialogue in this book is a work of art on the level of some of the final products from an episode of Nailed It. You know what I'm talking about. You know. So let me read to you guys to share the magic. Dead men, he was sure, make lousy bookies and have an empty sex life. And while there may have been a promise of greener grass on the other side of the fence, he damn well wanted to avoid being buried under it. He would have gone on to tell him exactly why your father bought a shotgun, except that their tightening circle implied that it wasn't their job to listen to bedtime stories, because it was Chet McCoy who was about to be put to sleep. This, honey, he said to her, as best he could, this is the way the bookie crumbles. It's like every single bit of dialogue is what's supposed to be a clever one-liner, and it's just so dumb. Who thought this was a good idea? And now for the final and most serious, like, this is the biggest issue that I had with this book. And that's that this book was like so far beyond sexist that words can't properly express it. If you look at this, the pink tags and also the green ones, because at one point I ran out of pink tags, are the things that made me either like kind of chuckle, because at first I was approaching this with more of a humorous, like, you know, approach, or just like really upset me because of how just blatantly objectifying they were. It called up the same saucy blonde he'd seen every time, the one who for all practical purposes had got the job by listing her measurements on the IQ test. She breathed her breasts to a defiant angle that yanked the blouse from her waist. Believe me, the winning number for this lottery will be 36, 24, 36. So I already mentioned Rocky's pal Brana being referred to as the blonde. And then also the whole constantly saying she's sore all over, but that bears repeating. But like I said, that he referred to her as the blonde, and he did that like before we knew her name. And she's not the only woman that gets referred to by hair color almost exclusively for like a little chunk of time. So Avon, who's one of our main female characters, is the redhead for like a few pages before we ever actually learn her name. And then Jewel, the wife of Pac Ledender, she gets referred to as a brunette for like a little bit too. I'm gonna get into those two women like individually because they got really fucked over. So Avon, she's not even interested in talking to Chet for like most of the actual like on-page time that she has. He was pestering her, and then for whatever reason, because somebody witnessed that, I guess, they kidnapped her and she gets dragged into this lunacy, and then she gets tied up and then repeatedly assaulted, and then in order to get rescued, she has to strip down and pretend to have sex with Chet, who was a guy she wasn't interested in, because he couldn't think of any better way to trick the guard into getting near them. But after this, then she's just magically like actually into Chet. Jewel, she was actually like a super smart and capable lady, but apparently she was just being used for her body, like, by everyone. A brunette, not the sort men dream about, but her body was the kind you have to see to know you want it, and that you've wanted it always. And that made my brain hurt to read. And then she had this like really brutal death, and I kind of just wish that she had like not gone back to save Chet and company, and she had just like run off with the money and just escaped on her own, and then there was a sequel that was just her story, because like I would read that. So like I said earlier, I was like mostly okay with this book at the beginning for the first like 2/3 in like a so bad it's good kind of way. Oh, fuck me. It was stupid, it was terrible, but I was laughing and I was trucking along just fine until we reached the rebel camp, and then the whole escape plan hinged on like faking sex and triggering violent jealousy in a confirmed rapist. I couldn't do that. That was just a shade too far for me, personally. I read a lot of older science fiction, and so I'm used to seeing some outdated concepts and some kind of like awful shit in them. So like I expect sexism. I expect some flat characters, especially women. I expect there to an extent even to be some sexual violence in some of those. Unfortunately, it happens, but this was written in a way that it was like so casually mentioned that it made me feel icky. Like it made me feel a little bit sick. In conclusion, don't read this. I promise that if you want to laugh at the absurdity, this video is really enough. Just like listen to the plot summary part of this video again, and you don't need to subject yourself to the 222 pages of madness that I read. It's a solid 3 hours that I spent reading this that I will never get back. Anyway, that was my review that started out ranty and funny and kind of got angry toward the end. Sorry about that. Let me know in the comments what the worst book you've ever read is, and if it was bad in a funny way or if it was just bad in a bad way. Recommend some other books that are maybe better for me to read. I don't know. Just talk to me about some stuff. Have a great day, guys. Bye.